remote learning, and everybody is preoccupied with work and other concerns. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen in and share some ideas, share some thoughts about where we are in the school year. This will likely be our last, my last head of school coffee, but there are a number of activities left in the school year. So a couple of things, just sort of by way of prepared remarks. My first thing is I wanted to take the opportunity to, at least this publicly, do my best to honor the class of 2020. Usually this would happen at an assembly that would happen this Friday. And obviously we can't have 800 children in the gym right now. So I did want to just take a second, in addition to all the other ways that we're seeking to honor the class of 2020. I just wanted to take a second here and talk about some of their incredible accomplishments. They're a really remarkable class, and they've had a lot of adversity to overcome in this last quarter. So I want to take a second just to point out how remarkable they are. Obviously, 100% of them have been accepted to four-year colleges and universities, as we would expect. However, they have set a new record in scholarships, academic scholarship offers. We've only included 30 out of 54 students, and these 30 who we have included here have earned $8,797,000. And that is $3 million more than our next highest, I believe. It's either 2 or 3 million more than the previous record. And like I said, that only accounts for roughly half of the senior class. So they are truly an incredible group. Some have earned really, really large scholarships, and we look forward to seeing what they do in the future. Also, we had 8 National Merit Scholarship finalists, 6 National Merit Commended, 1 National Hispanic Scholar. We also had, as far as the advanced placement recognition is concerned, we had 8 National AP Scholars out of a class of 54, 23 AP Scholars with distinction, 8 AP Scholars with honors, and 9 AP Scholars. And so these kids have really done a remarkable job. Their average SAT scores are in English or in writing 676, and in math 669. So I mean, they're really just something else. Their average ACT score ended up being north of 30. So as a group, their individual accomplishments are really remarkable, but as a group, they really are something to be proud of. And I'll detail some of the things that we have planned for them for the balance of the year as we move forward. Most of what I have to share with you before I take questions really has to do with the plans for the balance of the year. As you guys will recall, the end of the year is a really busy time for us, and we always have between assemblies and celebrations and awards banquets and honor society inductions, we have tons and tons of events usually in these last 2 weeks of school, and we need to do our best to approximate those. So I wanted to share with you a rough outline of what our plan is right now in terms of how we're going to handle a lot of these events. This will go out in a blog post or email from me in the coming days, but I did want you to have a sort of sneak peek of what we're after. And if you have any questions, or if you feel like I've forgotten something, I'm all ears, because I'd like to make sure that we button up everything that we can, even if it's virtually. So in no particular order, I'm going to rearrange these according to age group. But as far as athletic awards, we have posted special recognition of seniors' accomplishments and their participation to the Facebook page. We're going to distribute framed varsity letters to the senior student athletes at the senior parade and yearbook distribution event, which I'll talk about here in a second. We're preparing a video to honor all of the athletes this year with special recognition for the senior athletes. As far as honor society inductions are concerned in middle and upper school, those will be notified in the mail of their acceptance, and we'll schedule inductions next year. So we'd like to do those in person if possible. And so we want to recognize those kids and their hard work and their accomplishment, but we'd like to be able to do our inductions in person where we can. As far as the final assembly that I referenced earlier, given that seniors won't be on campus, we are trying to do our best to approximate those traditions. The kindergarten class has put together an art project that will be sent and distributed out to seniors, thereby sort of creating the best that we can remotely our long blue line ceremony where the seniors leave hand in hand with a kindergartner every year. And so this will be a keepsake item that kindergartners have put together. It'll feature a picture of a kindergartner and a senior, and so that kids will have something to hold on to that approximates that tradition. Parties to celebrate departing faculty will be moved to summer or fall. Recognition of milestone work anniversaries, which we do every year. People who have been at the school for 10, 15, 20, and 25 years, we recognize them specifically. I will be reaching out to them individually to congratulate them, but I will also make sure to honor them at the first all-school assembly that we have next year. So we'll keep that in the pipeline. Yearbook distribution is sort of depends on the class. We've got yearbook distribution for the seniors coming up, and they will get their yearbooks at the senior parade, which I believe is this week. I believe is Friday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, good. So that'll be on Friday. Seniors will get, as usual, be the first to get their yearbooks. And then juniors, sophomores, and freshmen will get theirs on May 18th, which I believe is Monday. And then there's yearbook distribution, and middle school students can pick up their belongings out of their lockers later next week, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't got that information, please reach out to your individual division director. Shanna, when are lower school students getting their yearbooks? Have you received those yet? I know there was a question yesterday about when we receive them.
We will distribute those during the car caravans for each grade level.
Okay.
Next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So our fingers are crossed that they will arrive soon.
Okay, thank you. As far as our senior sunset event, we're trying to plan a socially distanced senior sunset experience on campus where the kids can come together in their cars, parking in every other spot. We want to get a screen out and a projector and show the video that's being created by a student, Davidson Rufty, and also just give those kids an opportunity to be around one another. I mean, one of the great things about Senior Sunset and our other traditions is just being able to share that experience as a class, and that's one of the things that they're missing out on. So we look forward to planning that with the senior class. Class parties, the teachers in beginning and lower school are finding ways to end the year. So we can't have a party in person, but they're looking for ways to have kids join together via Zoom remotely to celebrate everything that they loved about the year. They're trying to end next week with every kid's favorite thing or every class's favorite thing. Also, the lower school is doing a project responding to this moment in history. We want the kids to have an opportunity to engage with the history that they're living through right now. So every class is handling this a little bit differently, and the teachers are trying to play to the strengths of the students. The beginning school car parade celebration. Lauren, can you tell me when that is? Or Sarah? I'm unmuting you right now, Sarah.
That is next Thursday. We decided we didn't want to get in a traffic jam with lower school next Thursday starting at 8. Parents were sent an invitation yesterday. There will be another one going out, and that will be our celebration, and parents will receive their child's history rank and all the special things that we've had from the year.
Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. Lower school awards. Every year we do an awards ceremony largely for 4th and 5th graders. This year we want to take extra special care to make sure that we honor 5th graders who have earned high-level awards, like their 3-year Reading Jewel Award, like their Presidential Scholarship Award, like their Great American Pride Program Awards. We want to make sure that we honor them. There is a Zoom meeting to recognize those kids as publicly as we can. We will also be putting together a keepsake program for that lists each child and all of their accomplishments so that we'll have something to hold on to remember this by. We would rather be doing these things in person, obviously, but we really felt that, when 5th graders become 6th graders, they would rather be middle schoolers at that time, and we want to be timely about this and really celebrate them in the moment when they've actually achieved the accomplishment. So ERBs, someone asked about ERBs last time. We really feel like ERBs really serve us in terms of a longitudinal way. So we have multiple years of students, but multiple years of entire classes of students as well. We really felt like taking a year off from doing a single standardized exam will not harm us and will not harm children, and it won't impact our ability to measure ourselves against ourselves. We have the highest standardized test scores of anybody in the state, so we're really only using those to make sure that we are where we need to be, and we're pretty confident that we can do that, continue to keep our high standards without a single year of ERBs. So we're just going to go ahead and skip those this year. Battle for the Bell finale. We won't be able to have field day, which was inaugurated last year, but Battle for the Bell points are trickling in, and we will announce a winner by the end of the year. And as soon as we can get together, we'll have that bell painting ceremony, and the winning team will have bragging rights for all of next school year. And the final thing that I haven't touched on is, I think, on many people's minds, and that has to do with graduation. Graduation is, and I've said this on multiple occasions to multiple people, graduation is more than an opportunity to hand someone a diploma. It is not simply the conference of an award or an honor. It is a ceremony. It's like a baptism or a bar mitzvah or a wedding. It is something that is a community event that tells us who we are to each other. Our graduation ceremony is so unique and so special. And any of you who have actually been to a graduation ceremony at the Meadows can attest to the fact that it really is remarkable that every student gets the opportunity to walk across that stage and have a biography recited by the director of the upper school to describe in detail the students' accomplishments, their hopes, where they're going to school, and all of the other things that in their mind has made up their Meadows school experience. To change that into something that is so scaled down, so impersonal as merely handing off a diploma really seemed to me like an undermining of our greatest traditions. And I'm not willing to do that if we can avoid it. So I want to try to stand firm, see what we can do about having a graduation. I've been asked, why aren't you doing what other schools are doing? And the reason is because we're not other schools. We're different, and we have traditions that I think tell a story of what the Meadows is and what the Meadows school experience is. So we are trying to reschedule. A survey has gone out to senior parents, to sort of parents and students, to gauge what their preference is going to be. And we're trying to look at late summer as an opportunity to hold that graduation, provided we move through phase one and we move into a phase where we can get a number of people together. But we're like so many other things right now, we're just sort of trying to play it by ear. And so that's that, as far as that's concerned. The work continues apace on planning the next school year. I've been working with my medical task force. It's a group of parents, local doctors, epidemiologists, and infectious disease doctors who are advising us on what protocols we need to use, masks or non-masks, how we go about sanitizing the space, how we go about doing social distancing appropriately. So we'll have all of those protocols in place regarding hygiene and health and that sort of thing. As regards the program, the academic program, I'm committed to coming back to school as close to normal as we possibly can. But unfortunately, I don't get to make that decision sometimes. But unlike many schools, we're small enough that we can obey social distancing parameters while still having kids in school. So we are looking, my pandemic response team, which is another task force that I put together, is made up of school leaders, people with lots of experience on our campus. And what we're looking at is 4 possible scenarios. One scenario will be back to normal, right? And where we have 20 children in a classroom and we're doing everything close to how we've always done it, maybe with some extra special attention to hand washing and hygiene and that sort of thing. The other end of the spectrum is going to be going completely remote. And we all know what that feels like, what that looks like. And that is not how we want to run the school. That's not how we want to deliver the educational experience. But as is the case right now, it was sort of foisted upon us. In between, we see two scenarios that are not firm, but they encapsulate, I think, what the other possibilities are. One is a social distancing scenario, wherein we have to cut the number of students on campus in half, or at least the number of students in classrooms in half. And so that would mean having a revised schedule where students are on campus only half the number of days a week. However, if that is the case, we are committed to finding a way to allow kids on campus, whether it's utilizing the gyms or utilizing the common areas, for parents who can't be at home with their children. I had a board meeting last night, and we discussed exactly, the kinds of personnel additions that we're going to need to make in order to accommodate as many kids on campus as we possibly can. So what I don't want is to force families to say, hey, I can't do this. I can't provide my child a Meadows education because I have to go to work and I can't have them home half the time in order to abide by social distancing rules. We'd like to be able to accommodate those parents and make sure that they continue to get the value of a Meadows education. And the fourth and final option or scenario that we're looking at has to do with it has to do with a classroom that is affected by mass absenteeism, right? And so what we're talking about is families who have an immunocompromised member, who have, where parents are healthcare workers and they've been exposed, and so children have to quarantine. We want to be able to accommodate mass absenteeism even in having normal school. So, I call mass absenteeism, I refer to that as 20% or above. So in a classroom of 20, if you're missing 4 kids, that's a pretty big day. And if you consistently miss 4 to 5 to 6 kids, that fundamentally alters how you run a class. And so we're making plans in order to deliver to those students as well. And what I don't want is for those students to have an experience where they're doing what we're doing right now for 8 hours a day. I think that that's bad for kids. I think that the studies are showing that kind of screen time, that kind of idle sitting and listening and working time is not good, particularly for younger kids. So we're going to be figuring out a way to observe best practices and deliver an educational experience to those kids who can't be on campus, even while delivering our traditional educational experience. And so with that, I think that this is a really good question. Somebody has just chatted me a question, and I think it's something that I should touch on the heels of what I just said. The question is, will you be doing training for the teachers to better implement possible further online learning? And the answer to that is yes. Every conversation that I've had with teachers is I want to tell them they deserve a pat on the back and they need a shot in the arm. They need both. They need to be congratulated for everything they've done. I think that they've done a remarkable job of pivoting into this experience. But I also think that they understand that this isn't over. In speaking with the medical task force, a doctor in that Zoom said, look, if this is a baseball game, we're in the second inning. We're only getting we're only getting ready now to handle this pandemic. And so I think all of us, educators included, are going to have to step up our skills. We're going to have to do a better job. And so we're looking at technical and technological infrastructural improvements, including Wi-Fi, our bandwidth increasing. We're looking at better cameras. We're looking at training for the teachers themselves so that they feel really confident and comfortable. We're looking at exactly how we can unify and make uniform the experience so that families with multiple children don't feel like they're trying to manage 8 different apps and 8 different platforms, right? So we're mindful of all of this stuff. And in addition to that, we'll be sending out a remote learning survey later on this week to gain as much knowledge from you all and from the parent body as we possibly can. So I know that in large part, the younger the student, the more difficult this transition has been. I know that that's a broad statement and it's probably a generalization, but what we have been hearing so far is that kids the older students have really sort of stepped up and managed this, right? Because they have that sort of executive skill where they can, make sure that they're on time for all their classes, and they're used to managing and juggling workload among 6 or 7 academic courses and so forth. Whereas a 6 and 7-year-old is not used to doing that kind of work. And so we need to think hard about how we approach any kind of remote learning moving forward, and cater it to the kids in front of us, so to speak. So thank you for that question. Any other questions? You can either type them in, or there's a feature where you can raise your hand if you just click the participants button at the bottom of your screen. I have a couple more questions here that have been chatted. Have the classrooms been assessed size-wise, and how many kids can sit in them with 6-foot separation, particularly for upper school where there's flexibility in how many kids are accepted in each course? We have not done exactly that work, but that work is ongoing, right? So we need to figure out, even if we separate students according to classes, we still have to worry about passing periods. And we're thinking through the possibility of staggering passing periods so that we don't have hundreds of kids in the hallways at the same time. I've got meetings next week about how we go about social distancing regarding the corral and food service, and whether that's something that we can change and still accommodate. So the answer to that question is, we're very mindful that 6 feet of separation has been the gold standard. However, a report came out of the Minnesota Department of Public Health. They're looking at 3 feet of separation for a number of reasons, and I can go into those specifically moving forward. I'm also monitoring really closely what's happening in schools in Denmark and Germany. Israel also opened up this week, and so returns on what those people are doing. Obviously, other countries are further along in terms of their approach, in terms of their ability to do mass testing on a mass scale and to track cases. But nevertheless, I think there's lessons to be learned. From what I have read and from what I've been able to gather from my school head friends in Europe, Denmark has not seen a massive increase in cases. Their schools are not becoming vectors or epicenters. So hopefully things clarify a little bit, but one way or the other, to the point, we need to figure out how many kids are in classes, how we go about sanitizing between classes, how we go about moving kids around school. The next question is, will the Meadows School be making its decision on whether to alter the school calendar or move to remote learning based on the Clark County School District? The answer to that is no. We will be doing what is best for us. We'll be holding school if we are allowed by the health department. I can't defy a governor's order. What I will not do is conform to what a multi-hundred thousand student school district is going to do, right? We're just in a different situation. And I know early in the pandemic, I made the decision to close our school in advance of Clark County School District. That was because I thought that the best information that we had indicated that closure was imminent. And I said, why dither and wait for the Clark County School District to make a decision? Now that we know what we know and we've experienced what we've experienced, I think it makes a lot of sense for us to make decisions about the Meadow School based on what the Meadow School needs. What are the protocols that will be put in place in the event that a child displays symptoms of COVID-19? Testing or contact tracing. This seems almost impossible with the younger ones, the questioner says, especially with flu season. It is not clear cut what would be the regular flu and cold versus coronavirus. We're going to start with the assumption, and I'm going to continue to work with the doctors on this. I know that like it so much in our society, responses to these things have become politicized. I'm not interested in the politics of the thing. I'm going to listen to a team of doctors who's actually working on this problem. And so we are going to, I foresee us taking the temperature of every child. I foresee us sending those kids home if they are symptomatic. I foresee, really holding a hard line with kids and parents. We will have to limit, if kids show any symptoms at all, whether or not they'll be allowed to come to school. As far as testing is concerned, even now with the growth in testing, I don't know that it's going to be feasible for us as an institution to test kids multiple times over the course of weeks, particularly without reliable antibody testing, right? So we won't know if what we're getting. Also, since since individuals can be infected and not show any symptoms, over a long period of time, testing would be the gold standard, I suppose. But you know, testing 850 kids once a week would be a pretty tall order. Let's see. What would be the plan for distance learning for students of the beginning school should the school be forced to close? Has the school considered prorated refunds for students who cannot participate in distance learning? Beginning school, it would be an example. And I think that that's a really great question. I think that beginning school is the example. As I said before, the distance and differences between an 18-year-old and a 3-year-old and their ability to distance learn are just remarkable and huge, right? So the board is honestly looking at this and decided yesterday to put together a group of people to look at the finances here. So they wanted to begin the year with a $2,500 tuition credit as an understanding that this is a hard time for everyone, but they are looking at the reality. A lot of independent schools are going month to month, right? And just saying like, look, if you can't make it, you don't have to pay for this month and you can come back when you can, and so on and so forth. I can't say that that is what is going to happen, but that is an option moving forward. But it is something that the board is really sensitive to. So I have somebody who made a comment that you know, some students in Ladybug's classes are having a positive experience. I think that you know, it may be the case. Some of us have more patience for being a teacher's aide of a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old than others. So I appreciate the positive comment. Sarah indicated if people have a beginning school question, she's happy to answer. She's got to go meet with students in 2 minutes. So thank you, Mrs. Carlson. Will summer Camp Mustang still be offered? Thank you for asking that question. I forgot about that. I asked Ms. Friedman to survey the faculty already, and she's gathering that information about, one, who's available this summer, right? Who wants to teach, whether they want to teach remotely or only in person, and how capable they would be of pivoting from remote learning to in person, right? So if we begin the experiences this summer with, you know, say some enrichment classes, a science fair class, for example, and we find that as the summer wears on, we're allowed to have kids in classes, I would love to have a summer experience that is on campus. As regards sports camps, I've asked Coach Grubert to take a hard look at what we can offer while obeying social distancing. I think tennis is a really great option for those kids. And so we're going to be looking at offering a tennis program this summer while observing social distancing and so forth. But tennis was called out specifically by the governor as an outdoor pursuit that is okay. So we'll be looking at that. I know that the coaches are itching to get back on campus. So we are trying to offer Camp Mustang is the answer to that question. And we'll have more information out to you in the next couple of weeks. Are there plans to give kids, particularly high schoolers, online learning content over the summer? The answer to that is yes. We're looking at that. We already have some sort of skills boosting courses like an algebra skills brush up for rising freshmen, a writing skills brush up for rising freshmen. But we're also looking at other classes because we have a number of teachers in the upper school who have great expertise in offering online courses already, even before they were forced to practice online learning for 8 weeks. So that is all part of the summer experiences that we're trying to put together right now. I don't think that Ms. Friedman is sleeping because she's got her hands full and she's trying to put all of this stuff together at the same time. Will a nurse be hired for next school year? That's one question. The answer to that question is maybe. We are looking at whether or not that's going to be a cost-effective thing to help us as a community. If we're not doing testing, then the symptoms at this point don't require a medical professional to help us make a determination whether or not a child should be on campus. So again, I'm going to be leaning on the doctors to advise me on whether or not that's a necessity, and the board is ready to spend what needs to be spent in order to make sure that we're staffed appropriately. So the idea of a school nurse has been brought up and is being considered. Will there be Zoom academic award ceremony for middle and upper school like there is going to be for lower school? I must have missed the academic awards piece of of my plan. Academic awards, we've decided that historically it has been a somewhat public event. So everybody who is getting an award is invited to a public event, and then we celebrate those kids and their accomplishment together. What we decided is that we'd like to go in a different direction and make that as personalized as possible. And so every child is going to be receiving a special notification in the mail, along with some other things that are going to individually recognize their accomplishment. Their awards will be available on campus in the fall. So that's the plan for now for academic awards. As far as seniors are concerned, their awards will be mailed to them in the parcel post. So let's see. If we end up with remote learning next year, even half on campus, half off campus scenario, will science be in the curriculum for kindergarten and first graders next year? When remote learning started this year, there weren't science lessons. Also, PE teachers could, I'll just paraphrase, PE teachers could do a better job of being more interactive and more in tune with what's going on with kids. The plan next year is to completely nail down a schedule, right? So every kid will have a schedule, a lower school, school-wide schedule. So regardless of what's happening on campus, what we expect is that we will have an ability to give each parent an individualized schedule for what is happening every single day. And the expectations are going to be that these things are uniform across grades, right? So every second grade teacher needs to be adhering to the same kind of schedule. There will be heightened expectations from the specialists, right? So that you as parents can understand and rely on the fact that, okay, we have Spanish at this time and we have PE at this time, and we expect kids to be engaged and to be involved. And so those specials were done in a sort of ad hoc way this year, and we need to raise the bar. So I take your point. And I think that is something that we need to address. Would there be any summer classes for math or English for rising sixth grade and middle school? Mr. Siegel, have you guys had any conversations about middle school summer classes? I unmuted you.
Okay. That has gone through Courtney when it comes to the offering of summer courses. When it comes to summer packets and things, those are being worked on. There will definitely be math packets. There will be, of course, the traditional summer reading and also something through history, just because of, well, usually there is something through history and English combined, and that will continue. So yes, there will be stuff. The math is going to be a little more detailed than in previous years because of the situation we're in.
Thank you.
Jeremy, it's Allie Hirsch. Last year, I taught a rising sixth grade summer study skills class that I'm going to offer again this year. It was actually 6th, 7th, 8th graders could join. So rising middle schoolers, studies June, look out for that if you are a middle school parent.
Thank you, Allie. I appreciate that. Let's see. Roshi, is your hand still up? Okay, because I see it's okay. So your question is, what points will create the two middle scenarios regarding social distancing? What will we look for before implementing those? Clarity from the government. Like so many of us, I've been frustrated that I'm forced to make decisions at the last minute, and that is not how we like to run the school. However, not knowing what is going to be allowed is really tough. Currently, and look, my crystal ball is as foggy as anyone's, but if we're in phase 1 for 3 weeks, that puts us out of phase 1 and into phase 2 early June, right? And what that is looking like is a social distancing paradigm. The big question, however, is whether or not the government is going to make decisions based on the big player, right, which is the Clark County School District, one of the largest school districts in the country. So if the government is going to make sweeping decisions based on what Clark County needs, then we'll all be shut down. I hope that's not the case. And what Governor Sisolak has said is that he wants the response to be catered to the individual jurisdictions. problem is we're in Clark County. So I don't know how that's going to play out. So I'm sorry that I can't answer your question directly, but what we are looking at is if the government says these are the restrictions, my hope is that they'll say that these are the restrictions. You have to have people, you need to observe social distancing. You can have school in session if you can observe these. And Clark County just says, we can't do that, right? And we will say, well, we can, and we're going to. That is what I'm waiting for, is to hear exactly what phase we're in order to be able to launch. But I'm telling teachers, you need to be able to do everything, right? So we're expecting teachers to be ready to deliver an entire year of curriculum online if necessary. Now, do not read that as we are going to aim for online. It is simply that it's easier to go from a plan that is online to something hybrid than it is to plan to be completely in person and go in the other direction, right? So it's just much easier to move in a direction that we're much more comfortable and used to. And that's what I'd like faculty to plan for this year. Let's see, if summer persists with the same at-home fashion as we've been doing, would you allow high school kids to take accredited classes online and transfer them into the Meadows school? They could take the Meadows school midterm and finals for that subject to accept the class. I'm thinking of something like geometry or language classes. I think that that's a really good question. However, at this point, I'm not willing to offer correspondence credit for other online classes. I still believe that what we offer in our classes and from our faculty is different enough that we need to preserve the integrity of the Meadow School diploma, so that we can't be giving a Meadow School diploma to students who have taken, 5-6 classes not at the Meadow School and have that be the same diploma as people taking all Meadows classes here on campus. That the diploma needs to mean what it means for everyone across the board. There have been studies that the amount of work being taught remotely should be less than the normal schedule, particularly for younger students. Is this being looked at? Yes, I hope that our experience is that the amount of work being given is less than it would be in an 8-hour school day. I hope that what we're seeing is not that second graders are doing 6 and 8 hours of schoolwork a day. That doesn't work. It's not helpful to student success. And so it's not, school isn't necessarily just about the content delivery, right? School itself is about social interaction, about learning to share the attention of an adult with many other students. It's about learning to be part of a team. It's about all of the other things. It's about being able to learn from the people around you and learning to absorb that information and filter it from the teacher as well. So there's so much more that happens in a classroom, not to mention the relationships that are built between a caring instructor and a child who wants to learn. That I don't think those things that you cannot approximate remotely, you shouldn't try to make up for with worksheets, right? You shouldn't try to keep kids busy. That's not the point of school. And so we're looking really hard at this. And one of the difficulties, frankly, is that if you're in a hybrid situation and you've got 8 hours in front of your third graders, roughly, call it 6.5, right? 6.5 hours in front of your third graders. How do you build that and filter that information, that approach to learning, that educational experience, and then deliver it remotely to 3, 4, 5 kids who can't be there? That is a question that we're looking to solve, and it's a question that we're hard at work on right now and building plans for. Not an easy thing to do, but we're beginning with the assumption that you cannot just place a camera in a classroom and have that approximate the student experience that we want, right? So we're not just going to say, sit down and watch your teacher teach lessons for 7-8 hours, right? That is not going to be our approach. So we are looking at workloads. I think that what we found was that the teachers who struggled most out of the gate were people who thought that they could just move their entire curriculum over onto the internet, right? And ask students to do exactly the same work that they were going to do without any of the support or any of the socialization or any of the other sort of invisible infrastructure that happens at school. And they were forced to back off from that really quickly because it just doesn't work. It really, especially in the upper grades, they were really feeling early on, they were feeling really ground down by the amount of work. They felt like I don't even go to school now, and I work twice as hard as I was before. And so we all tried to pay close attention to that and back off of some of that. When will upper school schedules for next year be sent out? Last year, they were sent out much later and affected getting books, et cetera, in a timely manner. Dana, are you on the call?
I am. Yeah, last year, every time we change the schedule, to answer the question, it takes us longer to be able to create the courses and then send the schedules out. The issue this year is that we're looking at doing the same thing, but I don't want to have it take too much longer than it normally would. So we will not have them out by the end of the school year. Students will not be able to, quote unquote, take them home with them on the 22nd, but we are working on the various schedules. The issue is we can't change our model and not change schedules. I mean, we have to come up with a model where that won't happen. So it will take a little bit longer, but I don't think it'll even take as long as it did last year. So I don't think there'll be an issue with book purchasing or anything like that.
Thank you. Mrs. Yasuda indicated that she might be interested in offering her incoming students some summer experiences so that she can assess their reading and writing level before they come in. And the question from this this participant is this something that we would allow? I think it's a great idea if it starts to look like we are not going to be in normal session, right? And that's one of the concerns that teachers really have, particularly in the younger grades. I wouldn't even say that. I think in all grades, starting the school year remotely is going to be a fundamentally different experience than being able to pivot, having known these kids for 3 quarters, right? Knowing your class, knowing the students, knowing their capability, knowing their approach to learning, you've got a pretty good bead on how to deliver to them the very best that you can. Starting the school year, not being able to do that is going to be a different thing entirely. And so I think that a couple of things need to happen. One, we've got to figure out a way to assess that and to do those kinds of introductions quickly and efficiently, remotely. The other thing that I think that we really need to do is engage parents more directly in the remote learning process so that parents have a really clear understanding of like, oh, this is how my class is going to work. Sort of like your back to school night, except strictly for remote learning, right? So it's not just like, these are my classroom procedures and this is how this is going to work, but a tutorial on how to be a parent of a remote learner, right? So you don't have to feel like you're struggling, drinking from the fire hose constantly, trying to keep up with what the teacher is trying to do. Because we know, particularly in the younger grades, we have to partner closely with parents in order to be successful. So the answer to that question is yes, we would allow for some summer experiences like that. I would like them to be uniform across the board. I don't think that just because you have an individual teacher, you should have a different experience than everybody else. So if we can get together and talk at grade level about what's appropriate, then that is something that we'd be excited to look into. A comment, not a question. My middle schooler is spending 8 hours at times a day, sometimes with all the Zooms, and then work on the same subjects. Brian, are you concerned about that as I am?
Yeah, but we've been checking weekly. I've been checking weekly with kids, and the average for most classes has been 3 to 4 hours. So, if your child's, I don't know who asked the question, but if they need to reach out to me, their teachers and their advisor, because because your child's spending twice as long as the average kid is spending doing their work.
Right. So I think that was going to be my response, even if Mr. Siegel didn't say so, that I think that if that is the case, that is a concern, and we need to figure that out. And whether that is an efficiency of utilizing the platforms thing, or whether that is, stretching assignments out for too long, or whatever it happens to be, Mr. Siegel can help you with that. The teachers can help you with that. Ms. Hirsch can help you with that, because that is not how we want kids to experience their education. So I'm sure that they are open to that conversation. Let's see. When kids transfer into the Meadows in 10th grade, or even 11th grade in a few instances, those kids are still getting a Meadows diploma and the school accepts their classes from their previous schools. So I don't understand your rationale for not allowing high school kids to take at least one accredited summer class and let it transfer. Totally understood, and I think that that's logical. Dana, do you want to address this at all? Or I mean, I can wade in because I do think that is a logical question.
And it's one that we've, looked at for many years, not just in this current situation. We have a really difficult time vetting even accredited programs and saying that they equate to what we do. That's been one of the difficulties. The other thing is that summer courses are a little bit different too, because they generally don't equate to the year-long courses that we offer. And so the conversation that we're having now, because I think what we're used to as parents is our kids doing a lot of this, and some of our travel plans have been canceled over the summer. So we're looking to kind of utilize our time, knowing that our kids are more comfortable with this, we're more comfortable with this, and maybe it makes sense for them to get ahead, so to speak. One of the issues is that they really don't need to get ahead. So one of the things we're talking about is remediation. We have some students that need a little extra help, no matter what level they're in. If they're going into Algebra 2, they need Algebra 1 skills, even though they haven't, well, probably because they haven't seen Algebra 1 maybe for 2 years or for over a year. And so we're looking at remediation. We're looking at skills building courses as regards writing. So we're looking to kind of offer our own. They're not transcript classes, but they're definitely in the mode of learning for learning's sake, learning for improvement moving forward for a better foundation. Staying busy, keeping your mind active for meaningful things that we're going to pick up again in the fall. But also we're looking into physical education offerings in the summer, so that that's credit that we could give. And so we're talking to athletics about that, about one of those kinds of offerings. We're also talking to especially math and language teachers and asking them to provide things for students to do over the summer to keep their skills up, and maybe even improve their skills a little bit moving into what would be their next level of math or language. So those are all things that we're going to be offering. The other thing is that we also do have summer work in a number of our classes already in the upper school to get kids kind of a leg up when they start in the fall to stagger due dates. There is summer reading and those kinds of things, summer writing assignments as well. So there are things for our students to do. And we also, believe in our students having a bit of a break. There is definite fatigue caused by this style of learning. And so I think we also, in a number of respects, need to give kids a bit of a break, in addition to the other things that we're offering. So we really need to look for balance here, because we want them to start the fall very strong and very rested. So we are going to be providing options that we think are better and more beneficial to the students. And students will graduate with more than the credits they will need anyway, is generally what happens. So the idea of kind of getting up or getting ahead isn't something that we're looking to do.
Do you just want to speak to that? Your screen name is Emma, but I don't think that's it.
No, yeah. Let me see. Hi, it's Glenda. Here's my problem. So to me, that's teaching to the bottom. You're offering remediation classes for the high schoolers, where normally they'd be able to go on service learning trips, a whole bunch of different experiences in the summer. So if they're not able to do that, they still need to be academically challenged. So teaching to the kids that aren't getting straight A's to keep them up remedially isn't helping the kids that are getting straight A's. You need to challenge them academically also. And by giving them repeat work that they already know what to do is not challenging them in any way. And like if I sign my daughter up for geometry class in the summer to keep her busy and keep her ahead, then she's repeating geometry next year, which is absurd. That's a waste of her time.
No,
I mean, I think you should consider it on a case-by-case basis. Considering the kid, the parent, I realize there are a lot of kids, and the parent that said the middle school were spending 8 hours a day. I don't know if that kid's just watching TV or what, but I know my daughter is not spending 8 hours a day. She's probably only spending maybe 3 hours, which to me is not enough.
Well, listen, I take your point, I really do, but I would not recommend, trying to get ahead. I don't know what the hurry would be to try to get through a math curriculum.
Well, we had looked at going to potentially, we're going to stay another year at least, but we had looked at moving to another schools, and we've looked at other schools, and those kids are all starting in Algebra 2 in 9th grade. They've already had geometry in 8th grade. So I feel like the school is actually behind. It may not be behind with Nevada standards, but some other state standards it is. So, I mean, That's concerning to
if you
me.
look at the finest schools in the country, they all offer Algebra 1 as an option for incoming ninth graders. So I don't think that we're behind by any stretch of the imagination. Moreover, when you talk about transfer credit, when we take students who come in from the outside and start as sophomores or whatever, almost every time we have to ask them to take extra classes, right? So it isn't the same that we're just saying, okay, well, you took geometry and now here you are. As often as not, when people come to us with classes from the outside, when they take their math assessment, they're not ready to do the math that we're offering them. So
That's why I say, I mean, if they can test out of your middle of whatever you offer for geometry, midterm and final exam, then it should be accepted. If not, yeah, they should repeat it. But if they get an A on your midterm and whatever you normally present for your final exam, then I see no reason why it shouldn't be accepted.
Yeah, I just fundamentally disagree with you. I don't think that a final exam is necessarily an indicator of an educational experience. And what we ask for our freshmen to do when they come in is in most cases to take geometry. I mean, there have been cases where kids have come in, at different levels, whether higher or lower, and we haven't looked at those. But as far as accepting transfer credit from our own students who want to get ahead, I've seen this from my very first years at the Meadows. When you have that happen, students get ahead too fast. And students learn at different rates. So what you end up having is students who are juniors and who are in a calculus class that is way over their head. And they're stuck there. So they have to get C's in those classes because they can't go backward, and we're not going to allow them to graduate with only 2 math classes. So, I mean, we're while what you're saying definitely has merit, we're operating from many, many years of experience and seeing thousands of kids.
But I do know this school has allowed kids to go and take summer Spanish immersion classes and then come in and test for their Spanish level. So what's the difference?
I don't know that has been the case.
Mrs. Modi told me it was when we had our last parent conference, that there's been a couple kids, Meadows kids after 8th grade went to a program in New Hampshire and then tested out of several levels of Spanish for high school when they came back.
What she might be referring to is students who would have been slated for a lower level, right? Which is still within the realm of what we offer.
She didn't. She gave specific names of kids. I can't remember them because they weren't
She
familiar.
She is incorrect as far as I know. Dana, are you aware of anything like that ever happening?
Well, no, and I think it's nothing that we would have put on a transcript or given credit for, but I think these are really kind of particular questions. I would ask actually that you please reach out to me. Just shoot me an email, because I think this is a really great conversation for us to have, because it seems rather particular too. And it really is talking about the end game, like where you want your student to end up. And so please send me an email, and I'm happy to continue this dialogue with you.
Okay. I was also the one that put the comment about the kindergarten science and PE kind of phoned it in and nothing for science. As you may recall, Mr. Gregerson, I was in your office when Peyton was in middle school, not middle school, in lower school, about the science not being the greatest. Based on her ERBs and other kids, we compared them, their ERBs, and then it was kind of stepped up a little bit more. But to not have science at all for kindergarten or 1st grade is unacceptable.
I'm sorry that you find it to be unacceptable. We've done everything that we could in this transition. So, like I said, we're committed to continuing to improve.
So next year you will definitely have some type of science for, like, real science for kindergarten 1st.
When you say some type of real science, what do you mean?
Well, right now the science teacher puts out no lessons at all for kindergarten and 1st graders. She only does it for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There's no science whatsoever as we started remote learning.
Okay. Yeah. No, that is the plan.
Okay.
The last questions that I have here have everything to do with timing and when you can know, when you can be, have some certainty around, let's see, some certainty around when we're going to have, when we'll know more about summer camp and when we'll know more about the plans for the fall. and so this is a question I think I do understand, but let me just air it out. What is the timeline for when the school will be prepared to unveil its distance learning platform to parents? For some of us, I think we'd like to see or hear something concrete. Well, we're in the process right now of looking at what has worked, what hasn't worked. We need to collect information from a survey. We need to be able to do our research. School is still in session. Right? I mean, so we haven't even finished the year yet. And so we do need a little bit of time. I understand the frustration. And like I said, I share it. I'm as frustrated as anybody to not be able to lay out plans, but it's not something that we're going to hurry. As far as the question itself regarding platform, I don't know if that question means like what programs we're going to be using, or yes. Okay, Elizabeth, I see you nodding. So what the platform is going to be, what we want to do is make sure that it's uniform, right? And so what we're doing right now is auditioning Google Classroom as one. We're looking at Canvas as another, particularly for the upper grades. Lower grades like Seesaw. We will likely, I think, be moving away from Zoom because of security issues and security usability concerns, right? And the access that kids can have in utilizing Zoom. So we have filtered it down to just a handful of things. But what we want to do is make sure that that divisionally or in terms of age group, I would like to see middle and upper be on the same platform. And I would like to see beginning and lower on the same platform. But what I'm committed to is being able to say, not only this is what every teacher is using, but also this is what the schedule is going to be for everyone. This is, when you're going to get your science and math and languages. And I think that we ought to have an answer to that question sometime in June, to be honest with you. I think, I mean, because we have to be able to plan and train teachers, right? So we can't make this decision in late July. As regards summer camp, my hope is that we're going to have, by the end of next week, something on offer, right? To say, these are the offerings. This is what we're going to be able to do. This is what the schedule is going to be. My hope is late next week. And again, I know that everybody would like to plan ahead of time, and I apologize.
Sabrina, are you there?
I'm sorry?
Sabrina, are you doing your
So let's see. So like I said, sometime next week, I hope. Let's see. I hope that we reassess what is happening over summer in upper school. Understood. I think that we are looking at what we can offer in upper school. Let's see. Can we make sure all kids and parents are trained and proficient on all platforms before starting? Yes. I assume that what's happening there, that what we need to be able to do is just take the first week of school and just have it be a sort of sandbox experience so that we're training kids, training parents, and holding, evening meetings if we have to, doing what it takes to make sure that parents feel like they're really comfortable with the platforms that we're using, particularly in the younger grades. In middle and upper, you could probably have them teach us a lot of how to use these things. But in the younger grades, we understand that you've been enlisted as teachers' aides. And so we feel it's our responsibility to train you and make sure that everybody's comfortable before we get going. One of the issues that we had this year was obviously we launched remote learning, and the teachers were in the midst of things and trying to keep going with what they were doing. And one of the things that we found across the board is that, engaging parents in the process, and this is something that schools all over the country have learned as a result of this, is that we need to move in a direction where parents feel like they're part of the team in managing this stuff. Anything else? Mickey, your hand is up. Do you want to speak, or did you type it out?
Instead of typing it out, I might as well say it. So I hope that you guys are assessing, like, I understand that there's Zoom calls and people have to be on it all the time, except how are we gonna do it? Like, sometimes Mazzara has golf tournaments and I have to send an email to all the teachers to send us a recording. Are they gonna be able to record as golf tournaments are gonna be in play next year? Mm-hmm. And how do kids assess, do that situation to miss school?
So what I imagine is going to happen is not that, like, if we're completely remote, the answer to the question is different, right? If we're totally remote, then everybody's going to be in the same boat, right? And if you can't make it to different Zooms and so forth, people can record the Zoom session if it's one of those things. But I think that we also need to improve our ability of going asynchronous, which means we need to have more cameras in more classrooms so that teachers can demonstrate a lesson or have a conversation and then take that file and share it to somebody so that they can learn from that material in their own time, right? So I don't believe that it's going to be, again, our approach to distance learning cannot be, you have to make it on time to this Zoom and sit and wait for, teacher after teacher after teacher
Right,
to
I
run
like
a
that.
class. I just don't think that's feasible.
Okay.
All right, I think we have come to the end of the questions. I do appreciate everybody's time. Again, thank you. I've heard so much positivity for the teachers, especially. Thank you for everything that all of you did to celebrate Teacher Appreciation. I know that they're having a really hard time. You don't get into this business because you want to stare at your screen, right? You get into this business because you're engaged in changing the lives of other people. And so it's hard to feel that kind of connection remotely. And I know that the faculty is having a hard time of this, like all of us are. So I really appreciate all of your support, your positivity. Everybody has been so supportive of just the effort, that teachers have put in. And I'm very, very, very proud of them. And I'm just as proud of the families that have really rolled up their sleeves and made this work as a community. It's been a really, really amazing thing. So thank you for everything. And please let me know. You know how to reach me. I'm available via email, and I never leave my screen. So everybody take care, and thanks again for coming. Bye-bye.